Hey everyone, welcome to The Path of Me. I'm your host, Wendy Hutchinson, and my guest today is the lovely Robin Landau. She is a licensed massage therapist. She is a master Marconics Energy teacher, and she's also a feng shui designer. So, welcome, Robin. Thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me, Wendy. I always love to be on your show.
Tell me a little bit about your journey real quick, about your healing journey, how you've had so many years of experience. And so I know that every piece of it is like a stepping stone bringing you to this point. So tell me a little bit about your healing journey and how you got here today.
So, I actually was corporate America bound, since I was young. When we used to play pretend, I would always be the secretary or the business person. I always loved all of that kind of stuff. And then went to college for business and communications, and massage actually was just something I've done since I'm a little girl. My dad would have my sister and I walk on his back and massage his feet. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. And it was never really something that was on my radar, except that through high school I was on the swim team, and so massage was just something that I did, you know. Um, but nothing that I thought that I would be making a living doing.
Mm-hmm.
But in college, um, I was encouraged to do something with this because everyone used to line up literally during finals or before tests to get some of the stress taken out from them. And it was just something that I was just good at.
Mm-hmm.
So I pursued massage therapy after college and became a New York State licensed massage therapist in 1989, I guess it is. And then soon after that, I specialized in a lymphatic drainage for a condition called lymphedema, which is after breast cancer surgery or prostate cancer. So I went the medical route with massage therapy, but I was always very in tune with energy. And so I did that. I raised a family, 2 daughters. And then in 2008, I started getting joint pain, and I needed a plan B. And I got called to express more of my creative side. I never thought I was an artist per se, but I had this creative energy that wanted to get expressed. And so I became an interior designer. And through that process, I renovated my own home and kind of had it as a hobby, helping family and friends. And then Superstorm Sandy devastated my town of Long Beach, New York, and my massage therapy clients became my interior design clients. And what I was noticing were energy signatures. If they came with high anxiety or depression, as far as coming to me for massage, I would go into their homes and I would feel that signature of anxiety and depression. And so I knew that there was this correlation, and then that brought me to feng shui, which is really the art and science of it's not just about furniture placement, it's about energy in a space, whether it be your home or your workspace, and balancing it out to match you, right? Because as within, as without, like it's just everything. If you're just going to bring it back, you can work on yourself all you want, but if you go back home and you don't change the energy there, you're just attracting it to yourself again. So that led me to the feng shui aspect. And it was through my feng shui teacher that I heard about Marconics. And I read the book. There are 2 books out there, The Clarion Call and Angels of Atlantis. And when I read that first book, never having received the energy myself, I just signed up for it was a life it was a life-changing experience for me. I knew something like this existed. I've tried all the other modalities that were available at this time. This was back in 2016 when I discovered it. Marconics, for those of you that don't know what that is, Marconics is an Ascension energy that became available to us in 2000, at the end of 2012, the big shift, the Mayan calendar ending, end of the world is really the end of the world as we knew it, because we were shifting from the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. And with that, energies were being flooded to the earth and helping us to raise our vibration, clear any misfirings that were in our fields, karma, activating DNA to help us not just survive, but thrive in these higher frequencies that we were being introduced to. So I went through the Marconics, all the levels that they were offering, and I've always been a teacher of spiritual alchemy in some form over the years, but I felt that it was an opportunity to teach Marconics, and I stepped into that role and I never looked back. As a result of stepping into that role of a Marconics teacher, I had to give up all my other 3D modalities. I was working with tuning forks and crystals and, you know, typical of what light workers and healers tend to do. But with Marconics, we keep it pure. And so if I was going to be a teacher, we wanted to make sure that the frequency is being transferred to our students in the most purest fashion. And I respected that. And I was just, it gives me such joy and it makes me very excited. So stepping into that role was the best thing that I've done. And now, as a result, I've become a master teacher of Marconics. Now I get to teach the upper levels, which is the Marconics recalibration. So it's been quite a journey, and one that really excites me.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I think the key here is for people to understand that there is a huge shift happening on our planet, and it's happening for every individual. It's touching every individual on this planet. And energetically, they're being asked, they're called to go higher. They're being called to shed and release density in their field, old programming. And this is all about frequency. So maybe you can speak to how Marconics energy differs from the modalities that light workers gravitate to, because I feel those modalities are really set to help people in a lower vibrational frequency, a 3D body template. And the body templates are changing as the frequencies change. So maybe you can speak to that a little bit about why Marconics energy is so powerful in assisting people at this time.
Well, you know, as a massage therapist, we've had to take continuing education classes in order to keep our licensing. So you're always layering your work. You've been conditioned to layer your work. And then you keep reaching these ceilings. You want to offer more. You want to give your clients the best. So this one's not working. It doesn't feel the same. It doesn't feel as strong as it used to. And so we call that, you know, we keep hitting a ceiling. And so we've been conditioned to add stuff and layering, but then, like I was saying, it takes away from the purity of what it is you're doing. And as we're moving from a carbon-based light body into a crystalline body, which is just more light quotient in your field, right? We have this morphogenetic field. And so as we're clearing that karma that you mentioned and activating this dormant DNA that is in our fields, we then fill that space up with this light quotient. And that's what gets us to raise our vibrations, right? And so for the third dimensional body template that we had when we first came to, well, not when we first came to the Earth, the planet Earth, we actually had a fifth dimensional body template, but we were dumbed down, and we were dumbed down by our chakra system being nipped close to the spine, and instead of them being round when we first started, they became conical, and they've had this trumpet shape, and there's a front and a back, and they've been plugged and sealed to help us survive in this density of the 3D planet. And so the modalities that have been available to us up until 2012, before that big shift, were created to help raise our vibration to a certain degree. But they're no longer going to work in as we're raising ourselves in those higher dimensional frequencies. And so Marconics was gifted to us truly to help us not just survive in those higher frequencies, but to thrive. And what makes Marconics different than any other modality, to our knowledge at least, is the quantum recalibration. And it's the first part of the quantum recalibration. We actually unseal the chakras, right? We unplug them, and we pull off 51% of the karma that we've accumulated lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And that just kind of tilts the scale in our favor. And it doesn't bypass us from the lessons that we need to learn through the karma, but it just gives us that advantage so that we can actually, I call it clearing the cobwebs and lifting the veil, so that we can actually make better choices for ourselves. And it's in those better choices that we learn our lessons. The conditioning, the programming that we've been enslaved to, truly, it's been an enslavement program that we've been a part of, but we were not conscious of it because we fell asleep. We weren't aware of what was going on. And that's what happened in 2012 of the big shift. We all thought we were all going to just hold hands and go into the light together, but the light workers weren't ready. And we weren't where we said we were going to be.
In fact, I think a lot of them have fallen back asleep.
And that's what's
happening.
happening.
Right? Just because of the fear, or not being able to really clear those old programs, past life imprints, things that have really kept them from stepping into their light.
Well, the other part of that is that the light workers were too attached to their loved ones that were not ready. And so with that attachment to their loved ones, whether that be their children or their spouses or any other friends and family, that kept them, it stunted their growth, it stunted their ascension process, and it kept them in those lower frequencies. And what's happening now through COVID is that a lot of light workers are starting to follow what we consider a false light. And this false light is keeping them still in the lower bandwidths of the fourth dimension, because third dimension in this reality is shut down, and everyone is moving into this corridor, if you will, of the fourth dimension. And in that fourth dimension, there are 7 bandwidths. And the lower bandwidths of fourth dimension is where heaven resides, in chaos. And so if you're finding yourself in that uncertainty, in that chaos, in that you're not where you want to be, whether it's in your marriage or the job that you're holding, or your friends that are around you, or where you live, for that matter, if you're finding that you're not satisfied, most likely you're in those lower bandwidths of 4. And so Marconics helps to clear all that, I call them misfirings, in a sense, that have kept you stuck. and it's like pulling off the Band-Aid. So Marconics is an accelerant, and it's full spectrum. So we have access to the full spectrum of light, right? We have from radio waves all the way to gamma rays. And so in that full spectrum of light, and plus we have access to the multidimensionality, which we all have access to. That's how, when our chakra systems become blossoming back into their round spheres, and they fit together as a unified field, like a Russian nesting doll, right? And they work together. The karma no longer accumulates, and we can start to express ourselves as the multidimensional beings that we once were.
That's such a beautiful explanation, Robin. I know one of the things that helped me or impacted me in my path so much was the detachment piece that I was gifted through my own recalibration and my own protocols. And there's something really powerful when you can actually step back and become more of an observer instead of being reactive in your life. That I did not realize what a powerful tool that was going to be in my spiritual toolbox. But after my recalibration, everything changed. It's like all of a sudden I wasn't feeling the need to engage or to win or to fight, or it was like, oh, okay, there it is. I'm just going to step back and see how this plays out. There's a power in that, right? And being able to actually detach emotionally and take all those hooks out that people have in you, and experiences and relationships and ego, and just we have so many cords and connections, right? So by removing those and doing
Isn't it when
powerful.
yeah, but when you're in those higher realms as the observer, right, in this detached state, in this state of neutrality, and you realize the characters in your play, you know, who you soul contracted with in this lifetime to help master yourself. And so when you find yourself being triggered, when you find yourself having difficulty detaching, it's, and you can be in that, you know, as the observer, and you say, yes, I'm being triggered. Clearly there's an opportunity for me to master myself, whether it be your children, whether it be your spouses, whether it be your boss, whether it be your next door neighbor, or, you know, that you're have a conflict with. I mean, there are so many opportunities, and your team, your higher self, purposely places these people into your reality for this opportunity. And once you master it and you realize, oh, that used to trigger me and I'm not really feeling that any longer, then you're onto something. That's when you know that you're starting to master yourself.
Mm-hmm. Those layers just keep peeling back, peeling back, peeling back. It's a lot of work. So much work.
It is a lot of work, but once you start to understand the mechanics of it, not that it gets easier, but your rebound is quicker. You start to recognize the trigger, and then you start to, then you know that you need to step back as the observer and see what is happening. Where am I feeling this? What is my role? What is the appropriate response, instead of always being in that reactive mode? And we need to know that it's okay to be, you know, to experience the full range from creator to destroyer. I mean, you talk about that a lot on your show. And it's about setting those healthy boundaries, but that's really what it is. It's your rebound, the speed of rebound that you start to, it gets quicker. So it's not easier, but you're not suffering as longer, I guess is the right way to say that, right?
It's really important too to understand that spiritual mastery it's not perfection. It's not like nothing bad ever happens to you. It's not like you never get angry. It's not like, you know, I think there's a misconception out there that, oh, when I've reached the highest levels, and there's this kumbaya moment and everything just magically.
I think that would be kind of boring, quite honestly.
I mean, I think that's what people really believe, but that's just not true. The life is still happening, right? You just become the eye of the storm, or
right. Well, you know, we're here. We're you know, in this meat suit and with the ego. I mean, we still, you know, we're trying. The mastery is to get the ego in balance, but we're here to experience the full spectrum of emotions. You know, and without that, you know, that's our humanness, is to experience that. But it's really about doing it in balance, and if we can be more in balance, that's where the mastery. Listen, I'm still here, so I'm still have something to learn.
right.
Once this experience is over, that's when, you know, you can cross over into your new experience. But the ascension, what we're going through, is to get us where we said we were going to be, because anyone that's here right now is playing a role for the ascension. Everything else that's going on is just smoke and mirrors and
A distraction, right?
just distraction. But not to say that we're not supposed to be here and enjoying ourselves, because it's in those moments that we can, the amount of joy that we can bring into our lives is keeps you in those higher frequencies. And if everyone could just learn to stay in their own lane and work on themselves instead of trying to fix everything outside of themselves, which is the distraction. If everyone can focus on working on themselves to be the best version of themselves, right? Then that in itself goes into the unified consciousness and mixes with other beings that are also striving to be the best version of themselves. And together we're going to be creating this new paradigm, this new bringing heaven onto earth shift. And that's really what it is. And so through, you know, I call myself an energy alchemist, and truly all that is just, you know, when you think of an alchemist, you're taking coal and you're turning it into gold through the process of pressure, right? And then making it kind of create into something else. And so, you know, whether it's through my massage therapy, what I've discovered is that I have the ability to, as I'm massaging, I find these stuck points. And the stuck point is really just another misfiring, something that is not a vibrational match into my client's field. And through this, the power of just saying, you know, intending that whatever is not a vibrational match needs to go. And with the more my client can surrender to that process, I then can just transform that misfiring into a healing, more healing, you know, light that allows me to move past that. And so throughout all the workshops that I've done, I've realized that there's a mapping. There's an actual mapping in the body, and we hold these emotions in different parts of our body, and you can relate it to the chakra system. But I don't even go there with that. I don't even let my linear mind get stuck in the stories, because we all have our stories. And sometimes the stories aren't even from this lifetime. But if we can clear that energy, then there's a more harmonious afterglow that can transpire in my client's field. So there's a, you know, you're treating the body as a whole.
Oh, how
So
I wish I lived
the interior design.
I wish I lived in your area.
I know.
I would be seeing you often. We were talking before we got on.
Well,
I was going to say, we were talking before we got on the show about.
I'm sorry. I just.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Robin.
No, I'm just saying. I'm planning to come to Texas. You know, so maybe, you know, you can manifest a session with me.
Oh, I would. That's going to happen. That is going to happen. Absolutely. I wanted to touch on, though, we were talking before we got on the conversation here about how, our higher self is always dropping these little jewels into our lives, these paths, these stepping stones that give us the experience and skill set and knowledge and emotional quotient to take us into that next level of experience. And I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit.
Well, I think the best way to explain that is that when we incarnate into a human vehicle, right? We have an oversoul. Everyone has an oversoul, and it's through that oversoul that you have higher selves that come down the line, and then with a direct connection to this incarnate, so to speak. So let's say the oversoul has higher self 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then let's say 3 and 4 didn't raise their vibration high enough, and then those will get reabsorbed into that oversoul, right? But 1 and 2 are on a path of higher ascension, and then they get to have their own experiences with their, then it's like a family tree with their then higher selves. So once you start to get activated with this dormant DNA and you're making the choices, because you have to understand that time is not linear in the higher in the higher dimensions, and so everything is happening at the same time. So there's a future you that already kind of experienced what you experienced and knows that if you made, took this turn or took that turn, or that what was going to be the most benevolent path for you, and so is always sending you the golden nuggets, the breadcrumbs to follow. And so let's just take my experience. I, thought I was going to be corporate America bound and took all this secretarial stuff and business stuff, which turns out that it helps me now be a businesswoman, right? Although I did not become a corporate America person, it still helped me along my path, and appreciate all my typing skills. When you're working on the computer and whatnot. And then, becoming the healer that I am. And plus all the communication classes that I took helped me in my teaching role, right? Not knowing that I was going to be a teacher when I was taking those classes. And then the interior design then allowed me to be creative with the feng shui. And then I just had the opportunity to design a park for a 9/11 hero, Luis Alvarez, who just opened up. We had our grand opening the other day. So then that leads me to, becoming the Marconics teacher that I am. And so if you consider all those aspects of me are my higher selves, I just kept following the breadcrumbs. Oh, this sounds interesting, and this workshop sounds interesting, and I'm just building on my skill sets, more tools in my toolbox, so to speak, so that it is just reminding me what my mission here is to do, right? That's really what our goal is in this lifetime, is to accomplish all the things that you want to accomplish, that you said you were going to accomplish, which then gets you prepared for your next experience. And those that are falling back to sleep are not where they said they were going to be, whether they decided, I don't want to do that. And so think of the higher self integrations as just another aspect of you that's getting you into a higher realm, so that eventually becoming a sovereign being is when you're able to be your own oversoul, and then your oversoul gets to ascend and have its own new experience with a whole other new set of circumstances.
Growth is eternal, isn't it? And it's up to us to make the choices.
That's right, because in all actuality, it doesn't matter where you are on your spiritual path. You're exactly where you need to be. And the originator of Marconics, Alice and David Bird, has a great way that she describes this. Imagine that we're all on a cruise ship, one of those very boxy cruise ships, and you have all the different layers of staterooms, and the lower being not as favorable as perhaps the penthouse, but you're all going to be crossing that finish line together, and it's okay to be in all these different bandwidths of frequency,
Mm-hmm.
right?
What is all of this? How have you changed? What have you noticed this, collection of skills and tools and spiritual growth? Who have you become through this process? And what are you?
I'm like a manifesting machine. I just, it's just happening all so fast. Like I just, this, we talk about being detached to the outside of, the people that are outside, but I'm almost detached from what I'm creating. I just always strive to be in the path that's going to be the most benevolent to my journey, and then always wanted just to bring things that give me joy. And like truly everything that I do, I'm amazed that I can actually make a living doing what I'm doing, because I'm just having so much fun doing it. So I've just become more at peace. I came into this world with a lot of fear, a lot of anger. I was just so angry, and needing to prove my worthiness. That was, a recipe for disaster, truly. I always say I should have been dead, at least three different times in my journey, but then the right people came into my world to help shift me, the teachers, the right book would land in my lap, and I started to believe in myself, and understanding that everything is vibrational, and I had a choice, but I didn't know what decisions to make, because I didn't even know what my choices were. Right. So it's through that journey that now I can flow. Now I'm going to be 55. I mean, it's been quite a journey. I'm 55 in a 5-year, and a 5 years, it's about that creativity. It's about that getting that fire underneath you to propel you forward. And I'm loving it. I'm loving it. COVID had nothing on me. This has been an amazing year for me. Just personally, in my business, in my just in all aspects. So it's how you choose to see it. It's really how you choose to see it.
Perspective is everything, right? I had a question for you about your upcoming classes. Tell me a little bit about your classes. What would people get by coming to your classes?
Before I get into that, I just want to say that Marconics now is international. Not only are there classes available in the United States, but they're available in the UK, Japan, and Spain, and Canada. So there's probably a class somewhere near you. My classes, I'm in the New York area at the moment on Long Island, and so I have an upcoming class June 5th and 6th, a level 1, and then I have a level 2 in the week after that, the 12th and 13th, and then some intensive classes throughout the year too. But if people just go on marconics.com, they'll see the whole schedule on there to see where a class near them would be.
I think it's important for people to know also that a lot of people take these classes for their own personal evolution, their own soul growth. Not everyone who goes through the classes becomes
Thank you. Yeah.
practitioners.
I forget about that.
So I just wanted to mention that. So people know that, you might be feeling like you're up against a ceiling. Like you've kind of gone as far as you can, but there's something more. So many reach that in their personal evolution, where they've tried all the modalities, or they've read all the books, or they've studied their religion so so intently, and there's this feeling inside that there's something more out there. This is the something more.
It's rising above the chaos, really, is what it is.
And it takes courage sometimes to break out of your paradigms and patterns, to release and detach from something that you have been raised on or programmed to embrace as the be all end all for your belief system or your spiritual path. We are always on a path of evolution. It's eternal. The most advanced among us continue to evolve and grow. And if you're feeling some sort of call, like you've reached a ceiling, like Robin talked about, pick up one of the books, the Marconics books, or go on the website or contact Robin and do a little exploration. I think it's important to continue to grow.
Well said. Yeah, and that's most people that come through the classes um, are not choosing to be practitioners. But when you come to the classes, there's there's an entrainment that goes on, and bundles of frequency get poured down and integrated within the students, what then gets them to that next level, and for their own spiritual evolution, so that they can remember what they came here to do.
Yeah, it's like an awakening to remembering, I think. And
To remembering, I love that.
yeah, and I think also um, it's important for us at this time we're all really making choices, not just about our human lives, but our soul evolution. We have kind of come almost to the end of the road here with our ability to choose and determine where we're going to go from a soul standpoint, energetically. And it's this is why there's so much turbulence and chaos going on in a lot of people's lives right now, because your tree is being shaken to let
That's right.
go. So stop holding on, stop gripping onto all of those things you need to let go of. Let them go. You can't go higher in your experience if you continue to hold on to all that weight.
Right, exactly. Like the ballasts on a hot air balloon that are just keeping you from getting off the ground. And that's really because what's happening is there's a bifurcation, there's a split, and there's the choice of um, artificial intelligence, more of a technological ascension path, or there's the what we consider the true God realized ascension path, where we can keep integrating with these aspects of ourselves so that we can reach that sovereignty, where we can reach the highest point at our Godhead state.
Yeah. I'm just encouraging people to get curious.
Yes.
Get curious, explore your
Yes,
feelings.
get curious.
Get, follow those breadcrumbs. Really pay attention to the intuition and the ideas and the things that are kind of lighting you up that you're being pulled to. Follow them. Follow them. You know, they're leading you somewhere. So I think there's so much programming and fear that's being shed and released right now, and everyone has the ability to do it. But these modalities, like just getting a massage with Robin, or taking a Marconics class with her, or exploring what you're feeling called to and feels in resonance, it's going to really help you on your journey.
And just another thing, just people should be mindful that what they used to do, perhaps the therapy that they used to, the modalities that they were getting done to them, are just no longer feeling in resonance with them. To honor that, because as you are raising your vibration, as you become more crystalline, those other modalities are just not a vibrational match to you. Just like the people, places, and things that are not a vibrational match to you start to fall away. And it's in that surrendering process that we do get to honor ourselves. And that's part of this self-care that we are, as healers, are trying to promote to everyone, that you need to, self-care is not just taking care of the hair and the outside stuff. It's about taking care of the inside stuff too.
And that your energy. Be mindful of what you're inviting into your field, right? Be mindful, because everything that you invite into your field is impacting your vibratory frequency. It's going to help to raise it, or it's going to lower it. So ask yourself, is this pattern or this behavior going to raise my vibration or lower it? You know, is this person that I'm hanging out with going to raise my vibration or lower it?
Exactly.
We should ask these questions, you know, and then pay attention to the answers and take aligned action, right?
I don't think people do take the time to even ponder these kind of things, that you know, whether it's you know, who's doing your nails, you know, to who's cutting your hair, to the salesperson in the stores, to whether you should even walk into the store. You know, I you know, spiritual hygiene is my number one thing that I teach all of my clients, regardless of whether they're massage clients, interior design clients, or my students. Spiritual hygiene is the number one thing that I go over, because it's the only thing we can have control over is our own energy fields and what we allow in.
I love the work you're doing, Robin. You're helping so many people, and the best is yet to come. The best is yet to come.
Yeah.
I highly recommend you to take a look at Robin's website. It's robinjoylandau.com. If you're curious about Marconics, go to marconics.com and find a practitioner in your area or a class in your area. And really, if you're feeling you're bumping up against the ceiling and you know that there's something more, get curious, get out there, explore. If you're up late at night, Google. I tell you, your higher self is going to drop the perfect, you know, website or piece of information and just another nugget along that trail of discovery for you. I've had calls actually before where I've said, how did you find me? And they're like, I literally went to my computer and your website was up on my computer. Like, it's like magic, you know? Like, well, I don't know how that happened. I'm like, and I'm glad you called, you know? So you're always leaving little.
People can understand. Yeah. And the universe is always conspiring in your favor. It's always conspiring if you just get out of your own way and follow the breadcrumbs. And but truly, it just starts to flow to you. Very little effort except showing up for yourself and being the best version of yourself. So I think that we really need to focus on.
Yeah, it's not a mystery, right? It's trying to be the best versions of ourselves, which means we need to stay in our lane. We need to stop being distracted, having those squirrel moments where we dart off and we keep getting pulled by responsibilities or obligation or, you know, guilt, whatever it is, right? Our families are really good at that, creating that need to please and guilting you into doing things. Our alignment is so important, I think, right now. But do you have any words of wisdom, Robin, before we kind of come to the end of our conversation about how people can really, you know, maybe some tools that would really help people go through a lot of this emotional chaos that they're experiencing right now in their lives? There's a lot of loss too, I've noticed.
Yeah. Well, really, you know, what we touched on before about staying detached and trying as much as possible to remain neutral, because it's in that state of neutrality that we can hear the messages from our higher self as how we should proceed, you know, going forward from there, and to start to really go within, to ground into their bodies. A lot of us tend to stay up in those higher chakras and stuck in the linear thinking of our brains, but truly it's heart intelligence now that we're focusing on, that's really going to have the answers of to where to find peace, where to find comfort, where to find what your next step is on your stepping stone on your journey is. And so my words of wisdom would be to really, for people to go within and stop looking outside of themselves for validation. Nothing against mediums and psychics, but I think people tend to put too much, give too much of their power away because they want instant gratification and answers. And truly, the answers are all within if we just remain connected to ourselves at source. There's a pillar of light that's a true direct connection, and through that connection is where we'll find our happiness, where we'll find our peace of mind, and where we'll find our higher purpose.
Definitely. I think there's also a need to have faith in yourself. You have to believe that you have.
Well, it's the trust. You have to trust that your higher self is going to guide you to where you need to be. So the faith in the powers that be, but it's trusting you right here, the incarnate, that you every step, and not to judge, that it's just taking you to where you need to be next, and to be open to the possibilities, because truly the possibilities are endless once you're in those higher realms of vibration.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Well, Robin, thank you so much for joining me today on this journey and having this beautiful conversation, sharing your wisdom and light. I really appreciate you being here. And to my audience, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you will check out Robin's work and marconics.com. If you have any questions, it's a beautiful opportunity to reconnect with yourself and become more empowered and find just, I think, really your meaning and purpose in life. So check it out. I hope you all have a beautiful day. I love you all. Take care of yourselves. Bye.
Like a bird on a